A single bee visits 5,000 flowers in one day. That might sound impressive until you realize those tiny flights are the only reason you ate breakfast this morning. 1 out of every 3 bites of food depends on pollinators, and bees are disappearing faster than scientists predicted. The numbers tell a grim story. Beekeepers lost almost 40% of their colonies last year alone. Wild bee populations have dropped even more dramatically in some regions. We're watching a collapse happen in real time, and most people have no idea it's connected to the empty shelves they'll see at grocery stores soon. But here's what makes this different from other environmental problems. You can actually do something about it today. Not someday when you have more money or time. Today. Let me show you why this matters more than you think, and what's really killing the bees in the first place. Most people blame pesticides, and they're partly right. Neonicotinoids, a class of insecticides used on farms worldwide, attack bee nervous systems. A bee exposed to these chemicals loses its ability to navigate home. Imagine trying to find your house, but your internal GPS just stopped working. The bee flies in circles until it dies of exhaustion, never making it back to the hive. That's brutal enough on its own, but pesticides are just one piece of a much larger puzzle. Habitat loss devastates bee populations in ways we're only beginning to understand. Think about your neighborhood. How many wildflower meadows have you seen lately? Developers pave over natural spaces and replace diverse ecosystems with grass monocultures. Grass is essentially a food desert for bees. It offers zero nutrition, zero shelter, zero nesting sites. Then there's climate change shifting bloom times. Flowers that used to open exactly when bees emerge from winter dormancy now bloom 2 weeks earlier. The bees wake up hungry to find nothing ready to eat yet. It's like showing up to a restaurant that won't open for another fortnight. Some species can adapt, but many can't adjust fast enough. Disease and parasites compound every other problem. Varroa mites attach to bees like tiny vampires, sucking their blood and spreading viruses throughout colonies. A healthy hive might fight off these invaders, but a hive already weakened by poor nutrition and pesticide exposure doesn't stand a chance. Now here's where it gets personal. Your yard, your balcony, even your windowsill can become a lifeline. Native plants are the foundation of any bee-friendly space. Notice I said native, not just any flowers. Bees evolved alongside specific plant species over millions of years. A bee in Texas has different needs than a bee in Maine. Those ornamental flowers from the garden center, often useless to local bees, sometimes even harmful if they've been treated with systemic pesticides that persist in the plant tissue. Research which plants are native to your specific region. Your state's agricultural extension office usually provides free lists. Once you know what belongs in your area, the real transformation can begin. Plant diversity matters as much as choosing native species. A yard full of only one flower type is like eating nothing but bread for every meal. You'd survive, but you wouldn't thrive. Bees need varied nutrition sources throughout the entire growing season, from early spring through late fall. Here's something nobody talks about. Those perfect manicured lawns are ecological dead zones. Every weekend, millions of people mow down clover and dandelions, which happen to be crucial early season food sources for bees emerging from winter. What we've been taught looks beautiful is actually starving pollinators. But the solution isn't complicated. Let me walk you through exactly what you need to create a space where bees don't just visit, but actually thrive. The next steps are simpler than you'd expect, and some of them cost absolutely nothing. Start by reducing your mowing frequency. Let sections of your lawn grow wild. Dandelions and clover will establish themselves naturally, providing free food for bees without you planting a single seed. If your neighbors complain about the weeds, you're doing it right. Those weeds are keeping pollinators alive. Next, create bare ground patches. This sounds counterintuitive, but 70% of bee species nest in the ground, not in hives. They need exposed soil to dig tunnels where they'll lay eggs. That thick layer of mulch covering every inch of your garden, it's blocking potential nesting sites. Leave some areas completely bare, preferably in spots that get morning sun. Water sources matter more than most people realize. Bees need to drink, but they can drown in open water. Place shallow dishes filled with pebbles or marbles in your garden. Fill them so water reaches just below the top of the stones. Bees will land on the pebbles and drink safely. Change the water every few days to prevent mosquito breeding. Eliminate pesticides entirely. There's no such thing as a bee-safe pesticide. Even organic options can harm pollinators. That aphid infestation on your roses? Lady beetles will handle it if you give them time. Nature has built-in pest control systems that work beautifully when we stop interfering. Now for the plant selection strategy, you need something blooming from March through October. Early spring flowers like crocuses and wild geraniums feed bees when little else is available. Summer bloomers like bee balm and coneflowers provide mid-season nutrition. Fall flowers such as asters and goldenrod give bees the energy reserves they need to survive winter. Height variation creates more habitat options. Tall plants like sunflowers offer different resources than ground covers like thyme. Some bee species have short tongues and can only access shallow flowers. Others have long tongues designed for tubular blooms. Diversity in plant height means you're feeding more species. Here's something that requires zero effort. Stop deadheading everything. Those spent flower heads you compulsively remove, they're seed sources for next year's plants and food for other wildlife. Let your garden get a little messy. Perfection is the enemy of biodiversity. If you lack yard space, containers work surprisingly well. A few pots of native flowers on an apartment balcony can support dozens of bee visits daily. Urban areas often have higher bee diversity than rural farmland because cities offer varied habitat patches, while farms grow single crops. Connect with neighbors about creating pollinator corridors. A line of bee-friendly yards on a single street provides much more value than isolated patches. Bees can forage across a network of gardens, accessing resources they'd miss otherwise. The time investment is minimal. Native plants require less water, no fertilizer, and minimal maintenance once established. You're essentially doing less work while creating more value. Traditional landscaping demands constant attention. Bee-friendly spaces largely take care of themselves. Every single yard converted creates measurable impact. Studies show urban gardens now support bee populations as effectively as nature reserves. Your small patch connects to someone else's small patch, forming a web of habitat across entire regions. The bees don't need grand gestures. They need thousands of people making small changes. Your windowsill herb garden matters. Your unmowed lawn section matters. That bare dirt patch you stopped covering matters. Together, these tiny decisions become the difference between bee populations collapsing and recovering. The solution isn't out there somewhere, it's already in your hands. You're not waiting for scientists to solve this. You're not waiting for policy changes or corporate responsibility. You already know what to do, and you can start this afternoon. Walk outside right now and identify one spot where you can let something grow wild. That's it. That's the first move. The bees visiting your street tomorrow don't care about your intentions or your concerns about what neighbors might think. They care about whether they find food or they don't, whether they find nesting sites or they don't, whether they survive or they don't. This isn't about saving the planet through some abstract future effort. It's about whether you mow that clover patch this weekend, whether you plant those native seeds next month, whether you leave that bare ground exposed instead of covering it with mulch. Simple decisions that compound across millions of yards into actual survival outcomes. The collapse is happening whether you pay attention or not, but the recovery only happens if enough people decide their small patch of earth matters more than their perfectly manicured lawn. Bees are visiting 5,000 flowers today. Make sure some of those flowers are yours.